Hello everyone, welcome back to Trekyards Mission Briefing, your weekly dose of Star Trek ship discussion, and we are venturing back into the future of Star Trek gaming, and then that will then go back into the past of Star Trek lore. Stuart, that was a very confusing intro. Let me know what on earth we're actually doing today.
Ooh, it sounds very Agents of Yesterday-ish, like Star Trek Online-y. Yes, we're looking at one of the new ships from Agents of Yesterday, a TOS design called the USS Perseus, which is a fantastic name. I love naming them after gods and demigods. Yes.
But I want to read out the little description it says on the page. It says, a versatile escort from the 23rd century. The Perseus-class Temporal Escort incorporated several state-of-the-art systems for the time, including the M6 computer.
Ooh, fancy.
We can talk about all this in a minute. Designed to provide rapid tactical analysis on the battlefield, the M6 has none of the troublesome drawbacks of his infamous predecessor. But Stuart, first thoughts on this next TOS era ship?
More thought could have been taken in its design. That's my first thought.
Interesting. Hey, elaborate. That's because you're the TOS fanboy of us both. You get this era, you love this era. You've professionally, in the sense that you've made all the different ships, and what do you mean?
Well, the front deflector part seems very tacked on and kit-bashy, kind of shoved into the saucer like that. And the struts for the nacelles should either just be straight down like the Ares, or not bent. Put it that way. It should be a bigger secondary hull perhaps, and then straight down. But I think that bend in them looks very odd and very quickly done, and it doesn't look very professional. It looks like a very cheap kit bash to me.
Wow.
My opinion.
And obviously you were very fond of some of the other TOS ships. That's quite a radical departure. So my first impression is, it's a TOS Ares. That's cool.
It looks more like a Centaur class to me.
Hey, that's the canonical equivalent. I mean, I like the Ares and I like how it's built. This is a more TOS-y version. It's got those more cylindrical shapes with the deflector bit and the secondary hull bit. I like that style of design. I think it works reasonably well. Although, if you look at the front of the ship, there's sort of a thing next to the deflector. Is that an error in the model, or is that... Because I can't see anything on one on the other side. I'm sure we'll see in later views, but I
we'll see later views, so we'll be able to answer that. One thing I did notice, and we talked about this when we talked about the Ranger class, was a little dome with a little antenna thing at the back. I just realized these are all temporal ships. That's some kind of temporal device, probably. We talked about it in the Ranger episode. We weren't sure exactly what it was. I didn't know that it was on all the TOS ships for Agents of Yesterday, so I think that solves our little dilemma that way. That is a temporal thing.
And that's the part of future technology they put on it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly there's no other influences that are beyond the 22nd century, 23rd century. So that might be the one temporal transponder sort of thing. What do you think of having the registry on the side of the ship, like losing that entire front section basically, and having the side view?
I don't like it. Like I said, there's a way to do that exact same front end, but have it more incorporated and have the front flush. Have the registry where it's supposed to be, but have the bottom kind of be more Akira-like almost to incorporate it. Like I said, it looks like somebody just literally had a model. And this is where kit bashing comes into play.
Yep.
First of all, the saucer looks upside down on this because they just flipped a Connie saucer upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's got the same kind of curve.
Don't notice that.
And the edges, are obviously upside down. But then they just took a saw, cut out a little rectangle in the front of the saucer, took the secondary hull and just jammed it in there. And I think it looks very unfinished and not... It doesn't look integrated enough for me.
Would the ship look better the other way around then? Flip it upside down?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it might too.
But I think then it would look way too much NX-01 style.
I don't know. Looking at also we can see the scale of the windows, but that bridge module, that makes the saucer look bigger to me. Because that bridge module is... I get the feeling that's smaller than it is on... Well, either the bridge itself is smaller, which is perfectly plausible. Or the actual saucer's bigger. What do you think scale-wise for this ship?
I think it's a smaller ship because it's an escort.
Okay.
So maybe, well, I don't know. I think I overestimated the Ranger class when I looked at it, because I've recently seen it next to a Defiant class, and it's not that much bigger than a Defiant.
Well, unfortunately, Defiants in Star Trek Online don't follow necessarily scaling conventions because they can't be as small as they should be. They don't scale every ship appropriately in that game because they can't.
Okay, that's a good point. I can see this being a lot shorter than a Connie. Not a lot shorter, a little shorter, put it that way. But I think it's just a smaller bridge module. I think basically,
yeah,
the saucer is probably relatively the same size as the Ranger, which is just probably slightly smaller than the Connie.
Yeah,
but it's hard to say.
I mean, quite plausibly, that bridge module, the top we consider, it could just be the window, as we see in the Connie, and then it actually extends down to the second deck, so it's actually even a bigger bridge module, but it's like not necessarily a 2-level, but it's just deeper, which I could certainly see being more interested in having a really small bridge, because, I don't know, I don't like having a really small TOS bridge, or very cramped, because the TOS bridge is such a good design, why not use the same base bridge?
I've seen 3D renders of the inside of a Daedalus class starship bridge, and it's like a Connie, but it's smaller. There's like a raised captain's chair and 2 other seats, and then like 2 other
positions. Did that in our episode, I think we showed that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hadn't even noticed the reverse source, so I think we should move on to a separate image to try and get more from this ship. So the next image is a bottom view. It does look like those bits that stick out of the sensor are on both sides. I think I just skipped ahead, so I know they are. So that's part of the design. We can see the impulse engines are going to be in the saucer. That's probably, those are sort of integrated at the back. I don't know, what do you think?
I like the bottom of the saucer better than the top. Like I said, those kind of additions to a saucer kind of module, I think, look better on the bottom than on the top. The top should be a much smoother, nicer look, not so chunky. On the bottom, I don't mind the chunkiness. It's very similar to the Constellation in that regard, where it's got the big bumps on the bottom, the sensor pallets.
Yep.
And I don't have a problem with that on the bottom of a saucer, but on the top, it takes away from the clean lines of Starfleet.
Do you think they should have gone the Saladin approach and just had the deflector coming straight out of the sensor dome? Well, then it wouldn't be unique, would it? Pretty much.
Yeah, that's, I'm not the biggest fan of that to begin with. I mean, it does look okay on certain ships, and I think that's something that should probably be done away with now. We got better ways of attaching that sensor than that, but it does make sense on some ships. But I don't know. There's something about this I just don't like.
I think they've definitely. I mean, this photo especially. This looks like it's a proto Centaur. I mean, the way the struts feel is very similar. Sort of TOS-ified it. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see the evolution of ships, and I believe there's also a four nacelle sort of constellation, proto-constellation. I mean, the shapes that we are familiar with, the Connie, that layout. Well, why wouldn't you have all of the later shapes in the four nacelle, the three nacelle, all these different shapes? Why wouldn't you have a TOS version? I mean, they surely didn't just invent, let's put four nacelles on in the 24th century. Why wouldn't they, think about them from the very start, and they just have iterations and variants? So this is kind of the first Centaur style. And I quite like this picture. I mean, I think this picture works pretty well. Although again, you're losing the two phaser turrets at the front of the sensor dome. I don't see any torpedoes of any kind. I mean, they're probably just using the stow 4 at the front to be any weapons, I would assume, because you wouldn't put weapon placements into the sensor dome. I mean, the deflector, would you?
No, but I do like the placement of those on this ship. If those were to be torpedo tubes for even just a TOS style ship, I think that's cool to have them up front like that. So I don't really have a problem that way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just like with the Ranger though, where are the phasers?
Yeah. TOS is a strange old one with phasers anyway.
let's go into the next picture. Perseus class escort. Ooh, interesting. I like the side view.
I like the top and the side view a lot.
Top view I'm not a big fan of. The side view is very cool though. I really like that.
Why aren't you a fan of the top view?
The engines are spaced too far apart this time, and it's just the saucer seems a little small. If the saucer was a little bigger, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But
see, I think that's just exactly how the Centaur is. Apart from the Centaur has a bigger saucer feel.
Yeah,
and I quite like the fact that there is. I mean, now you can really see in the 3/4 because it's better lit. There is the well, what I get the vibe from this ship is they have the secondary hull is just this cylinder that's throughout the ship. I mean, it goes either side of the dome, and then they built the saucer around it, and then there's these extra bulbous elements both. But I kind of like that continuity keeps from the front and the back, because on the top view it has this multi-leveled feel, which I quite like. Yeah, it's a whole different style. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, like I say, if they built the saucer around the secondary hull, and it's all just integrated. It's not the most elegant solution, and where is the engineering? I would assume it's right at the back. The shuttle bay is there. I mean, where is everything? And there's certainly not very much living space. I mean, compared to the Connie and the Ranger, I mean, really haven't got much space at all for anything.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say that it doesn't look like it's a very big ship crew-wise, based on those window placements and things. It just doesn't look big.
Which would make sense. I mean, the Centaur and the Ares both small. Again, they presumably also took inspiration from that a little bit. They can't not see the fan favorite and the TOS version to see what they did. But the side view's cool, all extra detail. I quite like the top view. I like the disproportionate. I think it actually works, and I think having that large wingspan like the Ares does as well, though they brought it in compared to Sean's original, having that zoom, having that nice big wingspan does give it a nice big vibe. And I'm sure we'll see that a little bit later on. But shall we go to the next picture, or do you have anything else to think about for this one?
No, I think we're good. Let's go to the next picture.
Very Centaur again.
Yes, and it looks like, is it getting hit with a very powerful weapon or firing one? I can't see any placement for where that weapon might be if it's supposed to be firing that.
Yeah, I assume it's firing from just those 4 turrets at the front. Stow logic?
2 of them, because 2 of them aren't lit up by that beam. So.
Stow logic? That's fine, I guess.
Okay, then.
It'd be easily fixed just by having bull turrets, next to the deflected dome. I mean, that'd be easy fix and torpedoes at the front, but
Do we have a rear view of this thing in this lineup? I don't know.
No, we do not.
That's a shame, because I want to see where those impulse engines are coming from.
Yes.
The streaks are very nondescript in their placement. From
the first picture actually has a good shot of that. Which we can go. Well, if you go back one picture and then to the top view, you can see it's those domes or those bulbous bits, the red elements. So it's integrated in. Do you think this feels TOS-y? Because I mean, you're pushing the shapes more daedalus-y and just. Do you think it still feels like a TOS ship?
It does. Yes, it absolutely does. It almost feels like a TOS Akira version from the shot.
Yeah.
See Akira.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. How is it?
In this shot, I don't have a problem with those cantered struts.
It works when you kind of look from the side or from the 3/4. I mean, I think the ship kind of feels like they took the mentality of what would be cheap to make, as another TOS ship. Well, we're just going to put a cylinder, cardboard, toilet tubes in the middle and build a Connie saucer, kit bash around it, and then just put some Connie nacelles and just flip them and stuff. So I think it feels very 60s, like this is what you do.
This is true. That's a very good thing. Yeah.
Because it feels less like what the TOS fleet coulda, woulda, shoulda feel like in terms of sleekness, in terms of, it doesn't feel as integrated, but it does feel more like what they might have done back then. Don't know if that was actual thought, but I think it works better when you think of it like that.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. This more so than the Ranger. The Ranger is very, very nice integration of all the parts.
Yeah.
More of a modern look. This, I think, is 60s. I like that.
There you go.
Good.
That's what Mission Briefin's about.
And the next picture we've got, well, it's nice lighting, I gotta say.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have a problem with it from this picture. If I saw this picture, I think that's a pretty cool looking ship. I like it.
It's interesting. This it seems to have more detail. I don't think it does, but you can see how it integrates with the dome, the sensor dome. Like, actually has another element it pops in on, which is kind of interesting. And then it's got a line coming out of the dome as well, so it's got even more detail, just even more texture to it.
And I'm going to say something now that I would usually never say about Federation ships. I think a more asymmetrical look on this ship would be much preferable. Here it looks like, you know how you got the front deflector part? You got that little bulbous part at the side. Here you can't tell if it's on the other side or not.
Yeah.
I think to not have it on the other side would be kind of cool, and would give it a good look from the front, to have that kind of asymmetry. But that's my personal opinion. Usually I like symmetry for Federation ships, but...
Yeah. So kind of a Constellation vibe is bonus sensor packages and things. Well, Centaur, I mean, that has bonus, has a lot of hull detailing. Well, let me throw something out to you. I just thought, would it be interesting if those bits, like say, if there's only one of them, if there's two of them, but actually they were each torpedo launchers? So there wasn't any weapons at the front. Phases of wherever they would be, but the torpedoes, maybe even the top and bottom, 4 torpedo launchers. How would that be for you?
Not for that shape. They'd have to refine the shape a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be kind of cool actually. But not with the way it is. Not with the way it sits.
So it'd be kind of a punishing cruiser. You know, it comes in, fires those 4 torpedo barrages, and then everything else is. But yeah, it's definitely very, very, very Centaur, very Ares, very bit Akira. I love, like we said for the Ranger, I love when the designers really. I mean, to take a step back and say, right, we've got to make these 3-4 original ships and not look like anything else of the TOS, but then, I mean, to do that, I mean, it's tricky.
It's a hard job at this point.
Yeah. And I think there must have been, 2 dozen designs, and they picked the best ones. And the best thought out ships are the ones that link, that fit, that have reasons, that say this is clearly a proto everything else. And like I said, when you think a bit more of the 60s, it works better, I think. Because there's a strange reason why the TOS nacelles work. They are just tubes, but the way their detail bits feel not like tubes, whereas the tube of the secondary hull for this ship just feels like a tube, and it feels out of place to me. And they just need to find a way of fixing that with this ship, and I think I'll be more on board with it. Just make the tubes feel less tubey.
Less tubular, dude. Whoa.
Yeah. But again, let's go back to the first picture, the nice high-res one. Closing thoughts. I mean, I think we've been a little bit less positive on this one, but we need to see it move. We need to see it in 3 dimensions. We need to see it fly around. Hopefully we can play it in Star Trek Online, at least see it played, part of the fleet.
Exactly.
Does this feel right? Does it feel good? Are you happy with it, even though you're not the biggest fan? I mean, we all have ships we don't like as much. Is it one of those ships where you still really like the design, but it just has bits that you would change? Is it fall in that category, or do you not actually like it as much? Final thoughts.
Overall, I'm not a fan. Okay. I mean, a few minor tweaks, it will make it better, but then you're kind of getting away from the uniqueness of it, because they did try to make it unique and not make it look like an Akira. I think that's why they added a lot of the things they did, instead of doing what I suggested, making the top smooth and kind of the more contoured bottom for that dish. That would make it very much more Akira. So I think they were trying to stay away from that. So I think they did a good job, but honestly, it's not in my top favorite TOS ships at all. It's kind of down near the bottom.
Okay.
It's too kit-bashy for me.
If they had smoothed out the deflector area to be more integrated with the hull, rather than just this bulb, and rather than the cylinder at the back with the impulse drive, or if they'd made that bigger like the Ares, basically, like the Ares, bigger secondary hull rather than just a tube, would that work better for you, do you think?
Yes, but then again, it would look too much like the Ares, and that would get people up in arms. So they were definitely going for something unique here.
Yes.
They accomplished. I'm just not sure that it hit all the right, ticked all the right boxes for me.
But that's why personal opinion comes in, because we're just giving our first impressions, and I'm sure when we start playing with the ship and seeing what's best things, we'll have other thoughts on it. But that's our first impression of the, what is it called? Oh, it says there, the Perseus class, ATC 1775, so we're only potentially 674 after the Enterprise. Maybe, we don't know. But yeah, I think that's closing thoughts. Again, really love the Star Trek Online's work. Love the expansion. Look forward to playing all of it. And there's a couple more of these ships we're going to look at. So let's see what else it has to offer. So if you want to help support this show, please go to trekyards.com, do a one-time donation, or Patreon/Trekyards, which is a monthly donation scheme where you can give whatever amount you want to us monthly. You know, it's like a Netflix service, but you get a lot of Trek content every single week. New stuff with guests and all. Just a lot of fun. You know, you're here already watching it, so you know already. Help us out if you can. If not, just continue watching the show, sharing it, Facebooking it, Twittering it, foruming it, shouting from the rooftops, whatever you want to do.
Trekyards is awesome.
This week's mission briefing is the Perseus class. I don't know. Until next time, guys, I'm Connor Kungs.
And I'm Captain Foley.
See you next time.
Keep on trekking. Doing your thing.